Revolve Renewable Power is a developer of solar, wind, hydro, and battery projects in the US, Canada, and Mexico. Revolve just announced a partnership with an experienced EPC or engineering, procurement, and construction company to initially target two portfolios of 50 megawatts of distributed generation solar projects. CEO Myke Clark is here to review the news and provide some additional context. I'm Martin Gagel with Market Radius Research. Please remember this is neither recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Myke, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Martin. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you, on this
Yeah.
rainy afternoon.
Yes, exactly. The beauty of Vancouver.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Interesting news you put out yesterday. Can you just sort of give us an overview on the news and what it means?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a partnership that we've signed with a group in Mexico. So an EPC partner, as you mentioned, easier to say EPC than engineer, procure, construct. But but essentially, these are groups that build projects. So they build, in this case, solar projects for commercial customers. And they've been doing that for quite some time. They have a great reputation and expertise in the market. And the interesting part of it for us and why we're looking for this type of a partnership is that these types of groups, the EPC groups, have a lot of deal flow. So they have projects that they're building for customers. Sometimes the customers just want to pay the cash for those projects, but sometimes those customers are looking for someone to own and operate that project and just buy the electricity from them. And that's where someone like Revolve steps in. So we work with the EPC partner on the customer's projects. The EPC goes and builds the project. So that's the benefit that they see. They get paid to build it, where we will own and operate the project and generate long-term recurring revenue from it. So it's a really nice fit in terms of, the types of groups that can come together. Someone who has projects that are ready to build, someone that wants to own those projects and operate those projects long term and can bring the financing to the table, which is Revolve. You put them together and you get a really nice partnership. With respect to this particular partnership, we're targeting 5 megawatts initially. And if you think about it, we currently have 12 megawatts of operating assets. So fundamentally, it's a very exciting development for us. These are all smaller rooftop solar projects, distributed generation, that total anywhere from, well, the first tranche of them is sort of 15 projects, and then about 10 projects in the second tranche that we're going to be focusing on. So really impacts our portfolio in terms of late stage projects that we can get into construction.
Like the benefits are you get more deal flow. What are any trade-offs associated with it, or is it just win-win all around?
It's pretty much win-win all around. In terms of deal flow, absolutely. That is the big benefit is we see someone who's in market building these projects who has access to that type of a deal flow, which is great from our perspective. Alternatively, we can talk to the customers directly, and we have done that in the past. And that involves our salespeople talking to the business owners and the managers and affecting that sale. And then we get in there, and then we go and hire an EPC to build it. So this way, we just sort of access those projects or a greater number of projects without having to do that upfront sales work on an individual project basis. So that's great. In terms of margins, no, it doesn't impact our margins. We still have the same return requirements. For any of these projects, an EPC would be building it anyway, so we have to pay the EPC. With this one, how we've structured it, and you'll see this in the news release, is it's a 70-30 split in terms of economics over a certain hurdle rate. So we set a hurdle rate, and that's confidential. But beyond that, so we see our return rate. And beyond that, then we share the economic benefits, 70% for us, 30% for the EPC. So the EPC sees a little bit of an upside in terms of their model for bringing the projects to the table. They get paid to build it, and we see that long-term recurring revenue with the return requirements that we see on all our projects.
And the people whose rooftop it's on, they're selling the project to you, and then is there a power purchase agreement that goes along with it where they then agree to a set rate for the power? How does that side of the economics work?
Yeah, so it is the latter. So we would sign a power purchase agreement with that end customer through the partnership. And so essentially what it looks like, it depends on the customer. Some of them, it's a fixed rate. And so we would sell power to that customer for X cents a kilowatt hour over the course of the contract, oftentimes escalating with inflation as well. Sometimes we enter into a contract where we basically split the savings. So on any given month, if there is $10,000 worth of savings on a customer's bill, we'll take X percentage, they'll take X percentage. So a savings mechanism essentially. So it depends on what the customer is looking for. Depends on how much they use in terms of power and what makes the most sense for the customer.
And so I guess the alternative for the customer is that they're not putting up the capital to build it. You're doing that, and then you're getting paid for that investment in terms of the recurring revenue for the coming years or decades as it produces power.
That is absolutely the sales pitch to the customer as well. Essentially, you're seeing anywhere from a 20 to 30% reduction in your electricity costs. So that's usually direct to the bottom line because you're reducing those OpEx costs for the customer, and they don't have to put up any money. So it's no money down, no money expended by the customer. They can use that capital to go and expand their business, and do what they do well, and we take care of the operations and maintenance of the system. All they do is save money. Obviously, we are constructing it on their rooftop, usually on their rooftop, but for all of these customers, it's not an area of the business, of the actual facility that they need to worry about anyway. So it makes a ton of sense. You're utilizing unused space and you're saving money without having to put any money up.
And you mentioned that this is a bit of a template. So there are other EPCs you're maybe in your pipeline, or you could do this within the Mexican market as well. Are there any like certain regions different EPCs operate in, so you're not kind of stumbling over each other, or different types of projects different EPCs would work with?
Yeah, so it's not exclusive, so we can work with anyone we want to, for sure. And we're definitely talking to other groups. We have had other projects come in through other groups as well. I think in the short term, we're going to work very hard with this particular group because they're bringing quite a few opportunities to the table. And so let's get as many of those through the pipe as possible and up and running. Generally speaking, as we scale this business, we want to scale it with partners. We don't necessarily want to have 50, 100 salespeople out there combing the countryside. We want those deals to come to us through partners, much like a channel partner program. Much more straightforward in terms of managing it on our side. And you also get quality projects that come in the door because the EPC has done that upfront work to assess the project, to determine the economic return and the constructability of the project as well. So we would look to replicate this in Mexico, but also ultimately, we want to replicate this in the US and Canada as well. That's down the road, but we feel that this is a model that we can replicate in several different jurisdictions.
And this first portfolio of projects, how far along are they? How close to ready to build are they? Or like how soon until they start making an impact, a financial impact on Revolve?
Yeah, so stay tuned on that. We have not disclosed that because the underlying contracts have not been signed, and I think that's something we mentioned in the release as well. But the guidance that we've given is that Q4 for the first tranche of projects in terms of construction, and so we're obviously in Q4 now, and so that is likely to happen sometime soon. We need to sign those underlying agreements, get those locked down, and then we absolutely announce those to the market when and if those happen. But we're pretty confident in that. And then the next tranche would probably be a little bit later. But essentially, the construction period on any one of these individual projects is a few weeks at most. Like it's not a
Okay.
very long construction schedule. However, once you start talking about 5, 10, 15 projects, we want to make sure that we are spreading them out just so that we ensure that execution is perfect, right? And that we don't run into any bumps in terms of supplies, material supply, or labor supply, or anything like that. So what we've said is that by Q2 of 2026, I believe is what we said, is when they should all be up and operating. But the first one should be up and operating once we get them signed up. I would say by the end of this year, if not very early in next year. It's the beauty of these smaller projects. We can build them fast. They start contributing to the revenue stream quite quickly. We don't have to wait 1, 2, 3 years.
All right. And just finally, you mentioned in the news release that the regulatory environment in Mexico is improving. I know very little about the Mexican regulatory environment.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little update on what's happened and what you expect to continue to happen in that market?
Yeah, I'll touch on 2 points quickly, or two sort of sectors. One, distributed generation, this particular release that we're talking about. What has happened is they've actually increased the size of projects you can build without a specific type of permit, meaning you don't have to go through this sort of long, rigorous interconnection process with the utility for these projects. It used to be up to 500 kilowatts, which is half a megawatt. Now it's 700 kilowatts. So a nice bump in terms of the size of the types of projects that you can build without having to go through that same long process. So that's really positive, and we're seeing a lot more interest on the commercial side of the distributed generation business because of that. And so that's impacting these types of projects. More broadly, of course, our investors may know we have utility scale projects in Mexico as well, late stage and earlier stage and mid stage wind projects, very large, multi-hundred megawatt projects that prior to this particular regime being in place in Mexico, they were kind of stalled a little bit because the government wasn't as friendly to renewables, it's fair to say. Since the election occurred, there's been definitely more clarity around the regulatory environment and process, and we're seeing those projects now advance more quickly, which is great. So the interconnection process for those is moving forward. And so that's a huge benefit for the industry in general, but for our projects in particular, because they are definitely now late stage projects, given what's going on with the interconnection process that has accelerated. You know, we went through a period of time where our phone wasn't even answered, right? Because there was so much uncertainty in terms of that interconnection process. Now we're seeing them move through that process quite quickly, so it's quite beneficial. It's been a 180-degree turn in terms of the environment with respect to renewables in Mexico, and because we've been there so long and we have such good assets, we're going to benefit from that hopefully, and so is Mexico. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to be providing power that's absolutely needed for them to increase their manufacturing and do a lot of the onshoring that we're talking about.
I think we've covered all the questions I had. Is there anything else you want to highlight before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's it. I think we touched on a few interesting notes with respect to distributed generation. People should definitely go to our website, check out all our news releases, because we have quite a few other items and milestones that we've been hitting, that we've been talking about with you as well. And if people want to get in touch with us, give me a buzz or give me an email. Happy to chat.
All right, Mike. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend and talk to you again soon.
Excellent. Thanks, Martin.